Rolling.
Welcome back to Red Bridge Garage. China has done it again. China, you crazy dog. So we was on Amazon the other day, and we seen that China has knocked off some more parts that we use all the time. So I thought we should buy these parts, bring them in the shop, and build an engine with them and torture test them to see how they hold up to the real deal. So we got them right here in the box. I haven't actually fully opened them yet, but one thing we got is a valve kit. So I don't really care about the valves, but it came with supposed to be 26-pound valve springs. Now I don't have any way to actually test these valve springs like the actual spring rates of them, but we can install a cam with these and see if we get valve flow and stuff. So that's all. Great. That's all we really care about is the. Oh, I got two. Thanks, China. You giving hearts. This is what was really exciting. These, if anybody knows, when you start making some power, you want to use ratio rockers. And Gauge was the brand forever that was the go-to ratio rockers. Well, we have here the knockoff Gauge ratio rockers. These are 1.3s, and they look pretty good. They got good weight to them, and come with all the insulation hardware that you need. So first, we're going to talk about these puppies. Okay, so these Gauge knockoff rockers was $160 plus tax. I think it was free shipping. So you can say these was about $170 after taxes. 175, something like that. Almost 180. Okay, so
you do the math.
Yeah, you sit down and crunch the numbers.
What number comes between 2 and 4 Beetlejuice?
25.
So the biggest thing is this even worth buying these hogs? Now we have set out a few of our known, oh my gosh.
Son of a...
So we have set out on the table here some of the ratio rockers. These are the Gauge Black Venom 1.3s, and these are EC's 1.2s. This is what we have in stock. So EC does have a needle bearing set of roller rockers. These that we have in stock are the bushing set. Now you can basically buy this 1.2 or 1.3 rockers for almost the same price as these Amazon ones. So when comparing, in my opinion, why would you buy Chinese products instead of supporting an American manufacturer and buying a quality product? So that's one thing. You can get the bearing models of EC roller rockers, and they're about $40 more. So still, why wouldn't you pay the $40 more to have an American, support an American company? I know people are on a budget and $40 makes a big deal, but when you have the support with EC, if anybody's ever dealt with EC, you know how much support they'll give you if you call in, if you have a problem with their actual product, to no support. You know what I mean? So one thing I want to see, is this a needle bearing? I think it could be, or is it a bushing? That's one thing, because that's going to really significantly hurt or help the value of these roller rockers. So let me go get my little clip pliers and we'll pop the clip off and see if they're a needle bearing or a bushing. Okay, we got the pliers. Easy does it. So do we have, come on baby, it looks like a needle bearing. I'm going to pull this thing apart. Yes. So, needle bearing is in there. I don't know, $30 cheaper than if you was to buy the EC roller rockers with the needle bearings. Again, my opinion is, why wouldn't you pay a little bit more to support an American company and to have some help? Another thing is, if you notice the fatness of this Gauge style rockers, this is the same with the Gauge too. These are exact knockoff of the Gauges. EC has done a lot of work to make theirs as low profile as possible. Sometimes you can run into clearance problems with the Gauge rockers and they can hit the casting in your head. EC has done a lot of work to help prevent that. So that's another thing. You're getting a slimmer rocker. Now, in the last few years, in the last year, we've switched up companies that we work with, and now we're basically open source, baby. We can work with anybody we want to. We stick with EC a lot because we've grown such a good relationship with them, but we're not tied down to any company. We can use ARC, OMB, anybody we want, where before, back in the day, we was tied to certain companies. So does it matter to me if you buy EC? I would like to think so. I would want you to buy EC, but at the end of the day, we don't have any kind of obligation to tell you not to buy these Amazon rockers. So I say that because I want you to know this will be a 100% unbiased review of this product. Like, I'm not going to make money whether you buy them or don't, you know, so.
Actually, well, the Amazon
Actually,
links.
yeah, with Amazon affiliate links, I actually would. My bad, I lied right to your faces. So I basically said that to let you guys know that it'd be great if you did support companies that support our channel, like EC Carburetors, because they have awesome products and they also give you a ton of support with your products. But when you go with something like this on eBay that China's knocking off, there's going to be no support whatsoever. And a lot of times people call companies like EC and they want their support on a part they may have bought from another company because they're not getting an answer from that other company, and they know EC will answer their calls. So it's just really think about, if you're going to need help on the back end, maybe you should be supporting a company that's going to have that help. It's the only thing I'm saying. So let's take a closer look at these rockers, because I did see one thing that's concerning, but other than that, they're actually a pretty decent set of rockers. So China did pretty decent job. It's probably a manufacturer that makes like the bearings and stuff for Gauge, and they just was like, hey, we can build these ourselves. So let's take a closer look at these rockers. So one thing, like with the EC rockers, there's no play in this roller. Like, it rolls super smooth, but there's no flop like front to back. The shaft is very tight on this, like not tight enough to bind it, but it's got a really tight fit. One other thing is you can replace this roller if needed. It has a C-clip there. You pop it off, you push the shaft inward.
That's what she said.
And it has a little hat there that keeps it in. So these are fully serviceable if you get the bushing or the bearing model. Again, the bearings are better, but there's nothing wrong with these bushing ones. On any of these rockers though, you want to make sure you use whatever oil you're going to use in the engine on, especially the bushings. A lot of people will install these dry, and then these bushings will seize up. So make sure to oil these after installing them very heavily, and even the needle bearings, make sure to get oil down in there. But so that's one thing. The EC rockers have no play in this bushing. This is a set of used Gauge rockers, but again, these are the needle bearings. This is exact replica. These eBay ones are exact replica to the Black Venoms. So there is no play in this roller as well, none whatsoever. So this one is serviceable as well. You can push that pin out there. It has no C-clip on it, just like a press fit. But you can press that out if you ever did need to change out that. Like, let's say you wore out a roller, you could service that. So this is the one downside I found with the Chinese ones. So for one, how they've done this is they've pushed the pin in and then they've like bolted out. They've like pressed it in there. So this is not serviceable unless you find a new pin to put inside here. Another thing is there's a ton of flop in that, which could mess with your adjustment. I'm not saying this is ultra bad, but I'm going to tell you, in both these other rockers, there's absolutely no play. That's the one downside. You can see the light gap there. It's quite a bit of movement. And so that's one thing about these cheap ones. You're not going to have the serviceability. That's easy anyways. You're going to have to drill that out and get a brand new pin for it. And that flop in there is a little concerning. You can tell like the metal shaft that they machined for the center pivot post is lesser quality than both the Gauge and the EC ones. Well, like I said, if these was $100, it would make a massive difference. Like, this would be game changing. But since they're literally, you can buy the EC ones for the same price as these Amazon ones, I would much rather go with the EC ones. Actually, I would pay $30-40 more and get the bearing version of the ECs, because they're going to do the same thing as the Black Venoms, but they're cheaper and you can get them all the way up to 1.5. So that is the rocker overview. All right, so far we have the springs look like normal springs. There's really no way that I have to check these. You can buy the tools to check springs, but again, I don't have them. And just to recap, these aren't horrible rockers. It's like if you've bought them, you're not going to be that upset with them. I do not like how much flop there is on that roller that touches the actual valve. And you can tell again that It's cheaper quality on some stuff, but all in all, they're pretty decent. If they would have been $100 or $120, then I think it would have been a hard argument to not buy these over the other brands. But Gage has always been the more expensive brand. Once we found EC, we started using their stuff, and you can tell the quality is just insane, and the fact that you can get all the way up to 1.5 rockers. Again, I would use the newer needle bearing versions, but we just had these on the shelf. These are still good. It isn't like they're bad, because all these are doing is pivoting. Got one more package here to open up. I did try to find everything to build an engine ultra cheap, like I wanted to find a cam and everything. The only knockoff cam I could find on Amazon was it's supposed to be a 274 cam, but the only reason I didn't order it was because there was one comment that kind of kept me from it, and he said that he measured it and it was less than his stock cam. I don't know if the guy was measuring it correctly. I can't say that, but I didn't want to risk my money and buy a crappy cam, so we'll just run a 265 cam that we have on the shelf. This kit comes with a sheet metal head gasket. It does not tell the thickness. It just says it's a 70mm bore. This was a kit that came with a piston rod and the gaskets that I bought off Amazon as well. We have our billet rod here. This is a knockoff of an ARC rod. Our hunch is that a company has sent this to China to get them to duplicate it, and then maybe didn't go through with the order, and then China just put them out on the market themselves. We don't know that for sure, but that's what we're guessing. We also got a coated piston, which this is kind of exciting, and I can't remember what it's. I think it's ceramic coated or something piston, so we'll open up both those in a minute. Okay, and there's our standard gasket set. Comes with the firing ring 40 thousandths thick gasket. I'm assuming the sheet metal one, I'm assuming this one is 10 thousandths thick. These are more prone to blow than the fire ring gaskets, because if you notice, you have these holes have a decent amount of gap. These lower holes have the upper holes have less of a gap. So you're more likely to blow these head gaskets. I've never blown them, but of course we're not building straight drag engines either. But these gaskets aren't horrible, nothing really wrong with them. It's a good set to have spare on the shelf. We'll open them up and just keep them in our gasket hole. So I'm really excited to look at this billet rod. I have no way of checking materials to know what kind of aluminum that they're using. I sure don't want to cut the aluminum up and see if it's porous or anything. It does come with instructions. That's very surprising. So let's see what we got here. There is our bearings. Says 6292 on the bearings. There is a little nick in the bearing right out of the packaging. One of them anyways. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I've circled it on screen. There's a hole in the bearing. Don't really think that'll hurt anything. Oh, there's also some side nicks in the bearing. Don't know if you can see that side nick. I'll try to circle it on screen. See, 6292 is what the bearing is. I'm going to look that up and see if that's an ARC knockoff part number. I'm very curious on that. Here is the rod, and all it says is 3.308, and that is what it measures. Doesn't look bad. Oh shoot, yeah, this is an exact copy of an ARC rod. And how I know that is ARC is one of the only companies that does the forced oil dipper hole. So this is the oil dipper that comes around and dips in the oil in the bottom of your block and slings it around the engine. Well, ARC is one of the only companies that bores a hole in this to force oil to your rod bearings. Now, we talked about this in a past video. Does this actually work? Does it make there's some companies that say that this makes the rod a little bit weaker. All the Clemens rods and stuff like that did not use that feature. ARC is one of the only ones. You be the judge of that. If you think that makes it weaker or better, that's up to you. So we do have an ARC rod right here. This is not the same. It is the same rod. Oh, son of a gun. Didn't even know it. So this is the ARC. This is a knockoff. You can see everything is exactly the same. Like the rod bolts. So one thing, the rod bolts look the same. They might look exactly the same. Those rod bolts may look the same, but ARC does use ARP bolts in their rods. So you're going to get a better resistance to stretching and stuff like that. There's a few little flaws in the finish of the machining, but it's not horrible. It's an identical replica of this ARC rod. I mean, they are identical. China do be good at copying though. So real quick, EC had contacted me while I was in this video. The engine's already built, so I actually can't check this, but if you see on screen, they noticed when they bought this cheap knockoff rod as well as the flywheel. I couldn't personally find the flywheel. I think it's sold out right now, where I was going to use the Chinese flywheel on this engine as well. But they're noticing they look like billet, but they're actually a machined cast flywheel, which is extremely dangerous. So I just say, be very cautious using parts like this. For one, the flywheels is the dangerous part. The rod isn't that dangerous because if it breaks, it's just going to blow up your engine, maybe knock a hole in it. But if you, or it could sling oil on your leg if you're on a mini bike and burn you. So I just say be extremely careful. I don't mess around with flywheels because I'm not going to lose my leg or die possibly over a mini bike or a go-kart engine. So I just say be very cautious buying this stuff. I would say support the companies that are making this hobby a reality, but I know everybody's going to have their own take on it. So just be extremely careful if you are messing with this stuff. So let's get back to the video. So that's really interesting. So when we compare it to an EC rod, EC does not put the forced oil hole on the dipper, if you can see there, and they believe that you do not need it. They've never seen a reason to add it, and that's why we've talked to EC, and they think it can add some weakness to the rod, so that's why they do not include it. But one big difference between, this is not the exact rod. This is a 3.303 rod, part number 8288 from EC. So this is a forged rod, and we talked about this in the past video. Forged is better than billet. So this is billet. This was a chunk of steel that they fully machined into this shape. A forged rod is they take a chunk of billet and they press it into a press that gets, you know, about 90% of its shape, and then finalize machine it to, you know, to perfect it. The reason this is different and better is it restructures the grains in the material and makes it stronger, where this is a bunch of straight lines, we can say, that's been, all these straight lines have been cut to make this shape, where this has been forced into the shape. It's kind of reconfiguring the grain structure of this metal, which makes forged stronger than billet. So that's why we like EC rods as well. They're forged. They're one of the only forged ones on the market. So you got billet and you got forged. And they're going to look the same almost. You can tell in person that they're actually different. They're very hard to come off on camera. But I just wanted to compare them to a ARC, and which is this exact replica. Again, pretty sure someone sent these to have them made and was going to put their own brand on them and just steal ARC's design, and then maybe backed out because it was too expensive or something. I know it cost about 10 grand or so to get a rod made, so I'm very curious of, we'll never know, but it'd be cool to know, because I don't see China just buying something in such a small niche market to try to copy like this. I did almost forget the piston. I actually finished out this portion of the video and realized I did not film the piston. So it says part number MK0492. It's blocked by a sticker, but it says GX200 or 212 70 millimeter, and that's all it says, made in China, of course. And it does have a QR code. Don't scan any QR code. Now they're getting pretty good at getting information off your phone when you scan a QR code. Don't scan any QR codes. Not ones you find in the street or anything. Comes with the pin. And then it comes with the clips, the little clips that hold the piston onto the rod. It's actually a pretty nice piston. So here is the ceramic coated piston. It looks like they've done a pretty dang good job. That is a really nice finish, actually. Very surprised at how good that finish is. I mean, just looking at it would be worth buying, honestly. Good job, China. So I don't know if they're necessarily copying this. I think they just took a stock flat top piston like you would find in a Hemi Predator. It's a big difference between a Hemi and a non-Hemi. Non-Hemi has a dished piston, and a Hemi has a flat top. So if you take a Hemi and slap on a non-Hemi head, you normally get a good performance engine because you can up the compression just by slapping on that head. And then you also have the flat top piston kind of free, so you're saving a little money. Like if you plan on buying a ported head or something like that, you can buy stock heads for super cheap to port yourself. That is actually really nice. And there's also, of course, rings in the bottom of the box. So pretty wild what China is doing. But we'll put all these parts on. We'll probably throw on a ported head, and we'll put a 265 cam. We'll have a decent set of rockers. I will tell you one thing that I noticed. So this is going to be hard to see, but if you'll notice, that hole for the pin for the piston is dead centered by the naked eye. This is the ARC rod. EC rod is the same way. Look at how off-centered that is. You can see how thick the material is here and how thin it is. They have got the hole off-centered. It's very strange. Let's get these parts put in and run them in an engine. Alrighty guys, we got a brand new Harbor Freight Predator 212 engine. This is the non-Hemi version. You can tell if you're picking it out in the store, if you look at the valve cover and it's this hexagon shape, that is the non-Hemi variant. And because we have those knockoff gauge ratio rockers, we need the non-Hemi head to use those. You may be able to look through them on the shelf. They'll be mixed up because Harbor Freight sees them as all the same engine. But this is the non-Hemi, so let's unbox it and get those good Chinese parts installed. So, don't know if you noticed this, but this is a Hemi engine. This is the first time I've ever gotten a Hemi in a non-Hemi box. Maybe they changed the part numbers because it's been a while since I picked a 212 Hemi Predator up or a non-Hemi, but this is the Hemi variant. That's extremely strange. So we'll just take this head off and use a Wildcat head on it. I know it's not going to be a Predator at that point with that one part fixed, but what we can do is it's going to work the same as the Wildcat head. The head that we're going to use, the Wildcat one, has a little bit bigger valve, so we're going to get a little bit more power, but it's not going to affect how these Chinese parts wear in this engine, which is extremely strange. If you guys have seen this, let me know. It's very strange that part number is a Hemi and the box showed non-Hemi, so it's real weird. 30 thousandths in the hole with that billet rod. So I had to actually pull out the crank again because I forgot on a Hemi you have to grind the little ears beside the crankshaft. This area, this is a stroker crank from EC. They pre-clearance their stroker cranks, as you can see right there, as well as right here. But I had to, again, this is a stroker crank, but I grinded down the little ears that's right here because Hemi Predators have them extremely tall. Nevertheless, we got this cleared, so now we can go ahead and put the side cover on. And what we're going to be installing is a Wildcat head from EC Carburetors. This hasn't been ported or anything, and I don't have time right now to port it, but it has the small combustion chamber, so this will up the power a little bit. It's got big valves, factory. This is a WC 946-32 part number. It already has the valve springs in it, so we're not really going to mess with the Chinese ones we got because we have no way to test them. But we're going to go ahead and slap on this head, and we'll get those knockoff gauge rockers installed, and then we can run this on something, torture test it, and you know, we'll just do a checkup every few weeks or a month or so to see how the parts are breaking in. So let's finish this hoss off. We're going to be using an old ARC flywheel we had on another build because I don't have another flywheel in stock. I would use the cast aluminum to keep this a budget build, but you're going to see more power from having a billet because of the more advanced timing. You could get an offset timing key and use the cast flywheel, but I just feel safe with us really beating on this engine with a billet flywheel. So, and I would actually rather use the EC because it has, I think, 2 more degrees over the ARC. But this is what we got, so this is what we're going to use. It's the last piece, and then we'll be able to throw it on a build and fire up. I saw a ton of oil spitting out this hog. Well, that's a mess. Son of a gun. Good thing no oil got on my clutch, but this is going to be a doozy. Let me clean it up. All right, so we got the new side cover gasket put on, but unfortunately I need a new chain for my dyno. I actually kicked the chain right after that pull, and it bent the chain. When I kicked it, I need to build a chain tensioner. So people see the chain flopping on this dyno, and the side that you're seeing is actually the like rebound side of the chain. The other side that you're not seeing is the tight side. So I am going to build a little spring loaded chain tensioner to take up that slack, because I'm normally trying to tension this chain by myself out here, and I never can get that son of a gun tight. Trying to tighten the way this dyno is set up is just really hard to do that. But anyways, we did get one clean pull before the smoke show happened. And I guess those bolts just work their way out. If you're really building one of these engines, they start vibrating a lot. The more RPMs you start pushing, you'll never be able to balance that out of them. So you should use blue Loctite on most of your fixtures, like on your crankcase and stuff like that. But anyways, we made 12.64 foot-pounds of torque at 5,800 RPM, and that's pretty high in the RPM band. And we made 14.65 horsepower. So pretty decent numbers. If I would have ported that head, we'd have seen an even bigger gain. I just didn't want to take the time. We'll do that later. But the main purpose is to beat on this engine now And we're going to do another video in about a month, and I will beat on this engine a lot. We'll take it to the meetup and stuff and just beat the crap out of it and see how they wear. But everything performed good other than the side cover coming off, but that ain't the Chinese parts fault. But let me know what you think about these parts. Make sure to check out EC's post that I was talking about earlier. We discussed that some of these rods are actually cast. I think mine was billet. It's already in the engine before this was brought to my attention, so I wasn't looking at it that close. I suspected it was billet. Mine does, from what I could see looking back in the video, mine does look like a billet rod, but who knows. So I personally would tell you guys, like, I mean, of course I want you to help support the channel by supporting those that support our channel, the companies that help us. But in all honesty, if you're not supporting companies like ARC, EC Carburetors, these companies that's actually making the parts and developing new parts, then if you're only supporting China, then there's going to be less parts developed. So when you guys want new parts for these engines, it takes even longer. Sometimes it just don't happen because China copying stuff and people supporting that, and you're not saving that much money. And you could go with a company that really has like backing, like EC has us do videos for them to get the information out there to you guys to help you through this hobby. And that's very important in my opinion. But everybody's going to see it's different, and they're going to do what they want to do. So I just say be aware the rockers are not worth it no matter what to me. There is a Chinese billet flywheel now. Couldn't get my hands on it, and it is cast as well. So just let that be a, just remember that when you're shopping for this stuff. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let us know what you think about these Chinese parts. And if you want to see us torture test it in any way, let us know and we'll do it. So thank you guys so much. Check out the links in the video description. We love you and God bless.